Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending upon from where you are joining us. My name is Professor Cihan Çobanoğlu. I'm the McKibben and Dodd Chair Professor and also the Director of M3 Center for Hospitality Technology and Innovation. It is our pleasure to welcome you to week 5 of the Post-Crisis Hospitality Management Certificate Program put together by the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management in the Muma College of Business at the University of South Florida. As I have said, we are again starting with the pre-show interview. Muma College of Business Dean Moez Limayem will be hosting Mr. Richard Gonzmart, the president of the Columbia Restaurant Group. Before I invite Dean Moez Limayem, I would like to show you a short video about the Columbia Restaurant.
Our history is everything when it comes to this restaurant. This was built from scratch by my great-grandfather, which started out as a small corner cafe in 1905. It feels exactly the same way, and it smells the same way. When I look at a recipe, if it has garlic in it, I'll usually double it, maybe sometimes triple it. I always say that chicken and yellow rice is kind of a simpler version of a paella. Onions, green peppers, garlic, some tomatoes, you brown your chicken. It's kind of one of those easy dishes that if you're having company over, you can prepare it, stick it in the oven, and 45 minutes later, you have a beautiful dish. It always tastes better when it's here, and I don't make it at home. You can come to Ybor, and a lot of people think, oh, it's just Spanish food, but there's so much more to it. And as Ybor has evolved, it has become more of a cultural destination. People are moving their businesses here, which then helps all of the restaurants that are here in Ybor. I think when you put love in your food and you take pride in your restaurant, that alone makes a great restaurant. It's delicious if you guys want to take a bite. It's like really good.
All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Moez Limayem, the very proud Lynn Dean of the USF Muma College of Business. And wherever you are, our friends here from, I think, 102 countries, more than 6,000. We're so happy to see you again in this 5th week. Wow, it's already 5th week. But let me tell you, today is a very special day for USF. Is a special day for the Muma College of Business, but it is a very, very special day for me. And you'll see why, because I have the honor and the chance to talk to one of my absolutely favorite people, a very, very personal friend, and probably an incredible member of our community. One that I really do not exaggerate if I say he inspires me every single day, because we're friends on Facebook, and every time I go there, I just get inspired by him. Today, I am so honored to have with me the amazing Mr. Richard Gonzmart.
I'm the one that's honored to be with you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. I don't even, to introduce you to our 6,000 friends here, Richard, I don't even know where to start. But let me just give you very, very quickly. So as we saw in this video, Richard Gonzmart, I would say probably the caretaker of the very famous, the landmark here in Tampa Bay, the Columbia restaurants. Remember? This is a 4th generation. It was created by Richard's grandfather in 1905. Richard has done an incredible job, and now he founded managing 13 of the best restaurants we have in our area. Believe me, I go to restaurants and I know good restaurants when I see it. And Richard's restaurants are just absolutely second to none. But that's the business side. Richard, I don't think that if you see any single award, and you say the best visionary, the best businessman, the best philanthropist, the citizens of the year, the businessman of the year, you name it, Richard very, very justifiably received 5 Hall of Fames, everything. But more importantly, the human side of Richard. He is the most caring, the most generous, considerate, and thoughtful person and friend you can ever have. I tell you, our Tampa Bay region and community is much better place for us, for our kids, because of my good friend Richard. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. Really, thank you.
Oh, it's my honor to be with you always, Moez. I have a high respect for you.
Thank you
for inviting me.
Thank you, Richard, and it's always a treat to talk to you. Let me start, Richard, with this really pandemic that took us all by surprise, and I'm sure it took you by surprise. But we always talk electronically and face to face. And what you have done first to your team, to your employees, during that pandemic, but also what you have done for the community is just unparalleled. I know I'm going to put you a little bit uncomfortable, but could you please tell us a little bit what the few things that frankly it just inspires me every day. Okay, I don't think we can hear you, Richard. Oh yeah, we can hear you now. It's good.
Yeah, my phone started ringing.
Oh, that's good. No problem. Hey, Richard is a busy man. He's a busy man, so we'll take it. No problem, Richard. Don't you worry.
No. I think I saw this crisis coming. I didn't know what the crisis would be, but I've been telling my nephew and my daughter for the last 2 years that I promised they would see a crisis like the last one I faced in '95, and that I prayed I was here. I look at history. History is so important in business, and my father always told me, learn the history. You think about 100 years ago in 1918, when 50 million people died from the Spanish flu.
Yes.
What did we do? And back then, everybody was wearing masks. And Tampa was decimated with deaths just like we're seeing today. We've come back from that. It's what I realized the most, and what makes everything possible for me are the people that work for us. So first thing, when we were told to shut down, we had to have a plan, and I had been planning beforehand. You have to foresee. I told my daughter we had to prepare a menu, a shorter menu, and she argued with me. Why would we have to do that? I said, we're going to have a menu that will probably have to be disposable, and we have to not be able to do tableside presentation. We may not have the staff. We'll have to have them distanced into different stations. So when we shut down, we started working on that, and March 20th, I believe it was.
Yep.
And I'll never forget that day. You have to listen to your instincts, and I believe in that early morning. And I had received the largest dividend check my company's ever given to me on March 1st. I didn't cash it. I put it in my drawer. I never told my wife that I had that. And I just had this instinct something would happen. And came March 21st, which happened to be my birthday, I took my check and gave it to my CFO. This company has to have the funds in order to meet the needs of our staff. I stopped taking pay. I set an example. I went back to March 1st and did not take pay. I didn't ask anybody else to do that. Then my major staff then offered to take in 50% pay cuts. We kept them employed. We kept them working. And what I realized is my team depended on me. We were feeding the equivalent of 9,000 meals a week to feed our families.
9,000 a meal a week.
Four meals a week.
Wow.
To our staff. We continued paying the 401ks. I was told I had to stop. My CFO said, no, we're not. We have to show confidence and strength that they're more important than anything else. And we did that. We paid their full insurance where they may have contributed. And I shared that. And then what I did as well is I wanted my children, my daughter and nephew to understand the challenges people had. And I suggested we sell gift certificates. And that those funds would go to fund the needs of our employees. And my CFO says, do you realize when those gift certificates are redeemed, we won't have the cash? I said, I understand that. Well, we'll be fine. Don't you think they'll spend more than whatever it was? Don't you think they'll respect it? We raised over $220,000.
Good for
And
you.
what we were able to do, that my daughter and nephew read the stories that the staff nominated people who needed and saw how much they depended on us, their job. So it's been a learning experience, you know, and it's one that makes me feel grateful. You know, I had communication. I work with family-owned businesses for our beef, for our pork, for our shrimp that are caught in Monteclair, Alabama, our chicken from Alabama and Georgia. And they all called to check on me to see how we were doing. I checked with them. We worked with Gordon Food Service, the largest family-owned food distributor, mainline, and they're in Michigan. They checked on me, and they kept on bringing us supplies. And I stayed current with every vendor. What I've learned 25 years ago, you have to be brutally honest. Sometimes it hurts. And I faced struggles that everybody said I would never, ever be able to pull off after my father died. And I found out that by communication and being honest, you don't have to have a good memory. People will trust you. And you may know we were building a Sicilian restaurant, and the contractor, he says, we'll keep on building. We're going to continue working. And I know you want to expand your dishwashing room. We'll do that. We'll put a new roof on your restaurant, you lady. I said, you know, this is difficult times. You don't have to pay me till July.
Wow.
And I said, why would you do that? And this made me tear up. He said, because you're Richard Gonzmart. You're a man of your word.
So true.
And so
true, Richard.
What I learned in the Great Depression, my grandfather struggled. He only had a day he sold $12, and he tells his best friend who worked with him, Gregorio Martinez, another day like that, we'll have to shut the restaurant down. His best friend came with $500, his life savings, saying how so many people depended on him. Those that work for us, the community. And the same family had been selling us milk for 112 years and been selling us bread for 102 years. We helped the community. So it was up to me now to learn from that lesson. What he did was, with a handshake, he borrowed $35,000 and he built the first air-conditioned dining room. Innovative. First air-conditioned dining room in Tampa Bay. And it worked. And so I have to have the same that courage and realize that to show strength to my staff. They didn't need to know the struggles I had. They had to know that they believed that they would be fine. So in all of our restaurants, we did some sort of work, and we put them to work to help us. And when the governor allowed us to open again, I did not open. I didn't feel it was proper. It wasn't time. And I said, the governor says we can open, that's fine, but we're going to wait. We're going to see what the trends are, what has to happen. So we opened on May 21st at Sarasota. And when we opened up on Sarasota that day, the city council voted to open up Lido Beach because the Columbia restaurant was open.
Wow. That's incredible, Richard. That is just amazing. You learned lessons from your grandparents, but you are teaching us lessons right now. You really are, Richard. Let's you always bring, and I know you're so proud of your father and your grandparents, and this is a fourth generation restaurant. So, unfortunately, and here we always say, you've probably heard it, that any family business starts weakening after the first generation, and toward the third generation it is gone. I mean, it is not the case for Gonzmart family. I mean, it's just, now you took it, you ran with it, it is stronger than ever. What is the secret for all the people who are in the family business?
It's having a love for what I do. I started working in the summers at the age of 12, so I'm 67. Wow. And they ask, am I slowing down? No, I'm picking up steam. Yeah. I have to work hard. I have to set the example, because I have to be the hardest worker in our company. I have to be ready and willing to work hours. I wake up, as you may know, 3 or 4 in the morning, and that's the time I contemplate that future. Yes. And to prepare. And my daughter's that you saw in the video, she's a graduate USF Business School.
Yes, that's why she's so good, right, Richard?
Right, that's why she's so good. and she boasts about that experience. But, but she understands that now how it's not just a business, it's a family that consider us family, extended family. I'm not the one, it's them. Yeah. And we empower them to do that. And so it's been working. It's one of these things that, and that we continue building the Sicilian restaurant. And we opened up in the midst of this crisis with a burst. And we opened up 12 days ago. Wow. And it's been a great success. And the people that said it's the first restaurant they've dined in since March because they trust us. A woman, their name is Jenny Campisi, came to celebrate her 91st birthday Saturday. Wow. And she had not been out. She says, can we take a picture together? And she takes her mask off, but you can't take your mask off. I'll hold my breath. So it's one of those prizes that they trust me because what we did, we took measures during the beginning years. We did deep cleaning in all the restaurants to make our staff feel safe and to understand. It's brought in the awareness of sanitation, cleaning, proper handling of food. It's making us a better restaurant. We'll be a better company. We'll be stronger. We'll make it through this because I planned for this crisis.
So Richard, what are the things you do to people trust you? I think that's really the key point. I mean, we go there, we bring guests there, we trust you. But in times like this, people are worried, but they still go there and they feel good. I mean, even the 91 years old lady took off her mask there. So what do you do to earn that trust? And how, if tell these our friends here, 6,000, if we go now, what did you do in the layout and what are the measures that you implemented, but when the client and the customer goes in, feels good and feels in good hands?
In the state of Florida, the governor's allowed 100% occupancy. We will not do that. We're running at 50%, 60%. Wow. We want you to have that social distancing that you feel safe. And that's the one thing, and the measures that we take to make that guest feel comfortable from the time they come in through the throwaway menus or the QR code. It's just that sense that they see people going constantly cleaning after, and we instill that into the team. We understand the responsibility we have that we've earned, and we have to, in order to maintain that, we have to show that every day. Wow, it's not an easy task, but it's one that I'm proud to see that they've embraced, and they realize how much people respect what we're trying to do and provide for others.
That's so true, Richard. Many of your awards reflect one of the best visionaries in our times. Can you hear me now? It's good? No?
Got it.
Better? Okay, good. So you are known, Richard, to be one of the best visionaries we know. That's true. So in times of this, during this crisis, most people were trying to downsize. You actually did the opposite. You started a new restaurant, and that new restaurant now, the review says it's one of the best restaurants in our area.
The reviews are great, and there's a waiting list to try to get in. And we took the time at the Columbia Ybor, Florida's oldest restaurant and largest. We installed a state-of-the-art kitchen. A dishwashing system. I spent over $800,000 expanding the kitchen and putting in a machine to wash my plates with all new technology and water. And then a machine that's 20 feet long just to wash my glasses. If ever there was a time that it was needed, it was that. We thought we could do it in 2 weeks. It took us 6 weeks. And I'm so proud that when people go there, sanitation of the eating utensils and that which they will eat will be done with the highest degree of anybody. The person who works our machine is the most important person in my company. Responsibility, the sanitation. And that's the way I treat them. And so we've done that. We've expanded this restaurant, and we put an insulated roof at Eulalie and expanded in St. Augustine, doing work in the kitchen and the floors. You had to invest and show our team that we had confidence we were going to be okay. You have to share confidence. My daily, I try to stay optimistic, and all my posts are only going to be that of opportunity and goodwill. And and even I get down, and somebody says, "Why are you sounding negative?" Well, everybody has a down day. Yeah, I just had 10 minutes, and writing about it was fine. I look at those opportunities and the vision opportunities that we have. This opportunity now with the takeaway, wow, it's been huge.
That's absolutely huge, and the success is right there, Richard. So let's. What kind of advice and lessons learned, if I ask you from all this crisis, and now we're starting to see a little bit the light at the end of the tunnel with vaccines coming, and if there is one, maybe because you're my friend, I give you even two, but don't tell anyone. What are the advice you give to all the restaurants, managers, and people from this industry that are listening to us from 102 countries?
We did lose some people that they moved out of state, but we took the opportunity because there's some great people out there that are waiting to be hired. And I realized I've taken the opportunity to bring in a younger management team to grow into that next department. I'm trying to hire the next Richard Gonzmart. I'm hiring the next chief financial officer, the next chief marketing officer, these 25, 27-year-olds. And I was able to find a great hire that a friend of mine that has a chain told me if you could get them, hire them, because there was opportunities that they were looking for to work with a family-owned business. So we're shoring up. We're preparing. We have to learn how to strategize and just send out our mission of what we're doing. Social media, it's a new world. When I told my daughter she was a little too old, she says, I'm only 41. I said, what time do you go out? She said, well, I'm pretty tired around 8. I said, you're over the cusp. We need to have those energized. So what we're doing is we're fine-tuning the menu. We don't have the larger menus that we felt we needed aren't necessary. You had to be able to control your labor because labor has been a challenge. You had to get the social distancing in the kitchen, the mask, and you have to follow through. I have to set the example. I had been around somebody that had COVID, and so I went and tested, and I quarantined myself for 5 days as I was told by my doctors. I was fine, but I had to set the example. I had to be open about it. I could have gone to work. I said I was near somebody that they're the only person, they don't know where they got it. Their wife doesn't have it, but I took that. And so I have to set the example. We have to set the example for those because they have to be cautious. They have to be a professional and keep others safe. And that's what the difference is. We have a remarkable crew. We have nearly 1,500 employees now. And
Wow.
yeah, but we don't have, we've been very fortunate, and knock on wood.
No, that's great. Richard, we were talking earlier with some of our colleagues about the trends, the changes in guest behavior. So one of the things, for example, you mentioned, we see a lot of takeaways now. People will order and come and take their food and eat it home. What are some of the changes that you are seeing now in the industry in general in terms of consumer behavior?
Well, we're listening to the customers, and they're going to tell you what they want. Yeah. And you have to listen to all of them. And so we're looking for those. Now, for the holidays, we understand that they want to not have a Christmas party, but they would love to still have their family. And would we be able to cater it for them? And so we've come up with different menus that they can take a taste of the Columbia. And we'll even have them have a server that will test negative to serve for them. So they can have a feeling of the Columbia. We want them to feel safe, and that's where they feel safe at home or in their backyard. And that's what we're seeing. So we're listening to them, and by wanting to accommodate their desires and needs, they embrace us and they support us. The support that I see on social media is miraculous. Yet there was a picture of me with a radio personality. I guess it's anti-mask, and we took a picture. I didn't have my mask, and I heard I was being lambasted for it. I took it off for 5 seconds. I taking a picture with a mask didn't seem right, and I was with him just about a minute. So I'm cautious. And Pam Bondi, our former Attorney General, was there Saturday night, and she was sitting there without her mask, and she stood up where we had our mask on, and she asked, "Can we take a picture?" Yes. Without a mask? Yeah, I can take one without a mask with you, but just briefly. So I understand what people feel, but it's a responsibility that we as managers, as operators and owners, that we set the example for our staff. We follow the guidelines expected of us.
Great lessons, Richard. What do you see now? We're talking about vaccines that are as high as 95% effective and efficient. What do you see the future of the restaurants industry, short term, like in few months, but also longer term? What will be the long-lasting impact of this pandemic, if any?
The message has to go out is that there's better treatment for the COVID-19. And USF Medical, along with Tampa General, have a treatment that works within 5 days for people with diabetics that are overweight or over 65. And so measures have been taken. I mean, the vaccine, I'll put my name on the line, yet people are saying they don't trust the vaccine. I said, I just don't know why. I'll be the first one to take it when I'm allowed to. And I have confidence that will give people confidence to feel better about going out. We're at a rough time. It's going to be a rough beginning first quarter of 2021. But with the two vaccines that are coming out with 95%, you're going to feel safe. And I hope there's a way to identify on your travel documents to show that you've had the vaccine. I mean, I'm first to take my flu vaccine, and I hear people don't take it. Why not? And I have a family member that doesn't want to take this vaccine because they don't know that it's proven. With a record number of time has gone into putting and making an effective vaccine that will protect us. We can't be afraid. We have to lead, and you put your name on and take that vaccine, but still practice caution.
So it's going to get worse first quarter, but then you think after that things will improve?
I see where they've closed down cities and California. I read something that CNN posted yesterday that in Japan there were more suicides last month than COVID deaths in the total year.
Wow.
So we have to get back to some normalcy. We have to give people hope. We have to have them an opportunity to go out and live life with caution, maybe. They need to go to work. Children have to go to school. They have to practice safe distancing. And I know that there's some outbreaks in the colleges because people don't realize, and I've had a grandson that had it when he was at Florida State. He got over it because he was young. And that's not the answer. They have to practice. We have to teach the young people to be cautious because when they come around, older people, they may bring it. We have a 98% survival rate. And many of those people that passed were very, very ill to begin with. If they passed away with it, that was labeled. So I don't discount it. It's a serious disease. And we have to be serious in how we treat this and we move forward. As a company, as a city, state, and country, we lead the way.
Cannot agree with you more. Richard, how do you see, if I take you, just close your eyes now, we're in 30 years, what would the restaurant look like? You're a true visionary. So I am sure what you're going to tell me now will happen in 30 years. How do you see a restaurant in 30 years?
It's going to become more expensive. We're always trying, we're upgrading our software programs right now for our inventories, etc. And you have to always be on that cusp, and you have to continue reinvesting. I commit 50% of our income to reinvesting back into our units, into our people. It's important. You're going to see the wages going up. It's going to be difficult. You're going to see the fast food McDonald's where they have kiosks. So you're going to eliminate those people taking orders. Just like when you used to go through a toll booth, you used to have to pay. Yeah. Now that doesn't exist. So, what worries me is that we're leaving work for people that maybe can't do other things. That's what bothers me. When I see countries that they have people working, it's my goal is to keep people employed. I don't have a desire to eliminate people. I have a desire to make it the ability to do a better job. The way we get rid of our waste, we put a machine in that's a Somat, chews up all the bones and shells and everything, and it recycles the water, reduces it by 80%, and it comes out of the slurry into my dumpster completely dry, reduced by 80%. It's safe for compost, for landfill. That's what we have to do. The owners have to reinvest into what's going to make our planet better and safer. So we have to look and see things. I'm looking always for that technology that's out there ahead, and I'm testing equipment constantly. And we can't be afraid. So in 30 years, I won't be here, but I hope that the Columbia restaurant will still be making our 1905 salad the same old way, and that we haven't taken shortcuts like we did over the period. And that was how I brought the Columbia back in 1995, by doing things the way they were done in the 30s, all fresh vegetable, working with families that know us and that we know them. Their name is as important as my name. And that's, I want to be able to sleep at night knowing I've done the best I can to help my community, to help my staff, to help them realize dreams. That's the first thing I always ask somebody: what is your dream? How can I help you make your dream come true? They've become doctors. They've become attorneys. They've become even a mayor. And they've won Super Bowls. I look at that, and I think that's what we're here. We each have the ability to inspire somebody. And you don't realize the lives you changed. And somebody the other day called me a light keeper. I'm not sure. But we have to be aware that it's not us. There's the people around us that we have to worry about. If we worry about them, they'll take care of me.
Richard, I couldn't believe the time is up. This is just incredible. We could go for hours, and I hope for all our friends here, the 6,000 plus listening to us from 102 countries, now understand when I say we have a remarkable person today with us. This is why, Richard, your family loves you, your staff loves you, your customers love you, and your friends and your community. Thank you so much, my friend, for everything you do to change so many lives and to inspire us every single day. I am so honored to call Richard Gonzmart my friend. Thank you so much. Best of luck for everything you do.
Thank you. And I've enjoyed many of the comments you posted, that people have posted. It's heartwarming. And I'm going to go back now when I go to work now and tell them the wonderful time I had with you. Thank you for including me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I have. And you're going to have also a wonderful, wonderful session tonight. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much, Dean Moez Limayem, for the wonderful conversation with Mr. Richard Gonzmart. This was great, and I would like to also welcome you now to the lecture portion of week 5. Today, Dr. Joe Askren and Mr. Garry Colpitts will be your instructors, and they will be talking about food and beverage management during crisis. Before I invite both of them to deliver their lecture, I would like to remind you, as usual, to please either write your comments on the comment box, or you can tweet your questions to us. We are checking them on a regular basis if you would like to share anything with them. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Joe and Garry. Welcome.
Thank you, Jihan. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Garry, how you doing? How's everyone doing out there?
Very good, thanks.
Fantastic. Yes, I'm joined here with Chef Garry Colpitts. Garry, how you doing? You doing well?
Doing groovy. Everything's good. Thank you. And you?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. What'd you think about Richard's pre-show there? That was fantastic.
A brilliant human being, truly passionate about everything he does, and he's a wonderful man.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So we welcome all of you to week 5 of the Post-Crisis Leadership Workshop organized by the M3 Center at the USF School of Hospitality at Muma College of Business. And we hope everyone out there is doing well and staying healthy. It's hard to believe we're already 5 weeks into this certificate program. Time really flies. And I'm going to share my screen, and then we will start the presentation here. Fantastic. So again, as I said, I'm sharing the stage here with Garry, Chef Garry. He and I both teach at our School of Hospitality, and he and I have a combined work experience of over 40 years in professional kitchens, restaurants, hotels, and resorts. And we've also both taught at culinary schools in Florida and Arizona. So needless to say, he and I are both very eager to get started on tonight's discussion. Our approach today is going to be a a conversation on food and beverage operations. We hope to take some great questions from the audience, from you folks. So feel free to post those in the comment section or tweet those to us. And then we also have some incredible, I think, insightful comments from partners of ours in the industry in our local area here, restaurateurs and chef owners. So we can't wait to share those with you. All right, so as you know, the COVID-19 epidemic was followed by CDC recommendations and state mandates trying to cope with this virus. We're all aware of the shutdowns and the partial capacity reopenings that have just devastated not only our national economy, but also economies around the globe. So if we go back in time a little bit, I think it's important just to kind of trace our steps a little bit. Looking back now at the restaurant sector, at the start of 2020, from February into early March, according to Foursquare, I'm sure you've heard of Foursquare. They're a location technology company, and they were tracking visits to casual dining restaurants. And so those visits to casual dining restaurants started to fall, declining 8 to 12% around February 24th. And then OpenTable, I'm sure you've heard of OpenTable. They're an online reservation service. They had reports showing 24 to 31% drop in reservations by March 3rd. And then, and that was compared with 2019. And then just a week later, some cities saw 49% decline in reservations. And again, this was before enforced closures. And then interestingly, grocery store app downloads certainly increased at that point in time. Those bulk buy locations, Costco's and Sam's, they saw increases of 40% in some states. So, Gary, I guess people have to get their food from somewhere, right? They have to eat if restaurants are struggling and are closed. What's your take on that?
Indeed, they do, Joe. The pandemic has certainly changed our grocery store shopping habits, haven't they? For all of us, not just here in the U.S., but all over the planet. We've seen a significant shift to online shopping, so contactless, people ordering from the comfort of their very own homes and having it delivered right to their door, right? So more and more people have retreated to their own kitchens and becoming hobby chefs, if you will. Which I'd like to say that there was an account to census data which has led to the average American household spending, which it's spiked to $525 just this year alone in 2020. That's 30% from last year, and that's according to a census data. Yeah,
I remember in restaurant management class, in our undergraduate class, I've always talked about how we have restaurants, and then who are the competitors to restaurants. You have to consider grocery stores are one of those outside rings, not a direct competitor, but now we see grocery stores really kind of picking up the slack there and flexing with all of this going on. We will get to our thoughts on hotels. It's important to talk about hotels and resorts as well. But regarding restaurants, by mid-March, many restaurants were just devastated by executive orders to shut down. These orders were targeted towards on-site dining at restaurants and bars. And then during the summer, Independent Restaurant Coalition predicted 85% of independent restaurants would go out of business by the end of 2020. And then as we see right now, 8 months since the shutdown, according to the NRA, 1 in 6 restaurants have shut down permanently or long-term. I mean, my gosh, that's over 100,000 restaurants, and non-chain restaurants, the independents, they've certainly been the hardest hit. But even major chains and big restaurant companies have also had to adjust their portfolios. They sold off locations, they furloughed workers, tried to just find ways to survive. And it's clear these, even big restaurants are struggling as well, of course. Now, Gary, you and I have talked a lot about hotels and resorts, and
right.
And just to kind of cover some points here, all food and beverage operations and hotels and resorts, whether it's restaurants, banquets, or catering, they're certainly anchored to a location, so that can be challenging, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not easy. So you've got to look at urban versus suburban areas. So certainly in the urban areas, with these densely populated areas where there's lots of people. So the concern is COVID-19, obviously, and becoming infected. So versus the suburban where it's sparsely populated. So therefore, it's still a concern, but not as much.
Exactly. And it's interesting if we look at this, not think about hotels and resorts. Not every single location has a strong local clientele. They don't have, we're talking some of these hotels that we either know about or either worked at. There's surrounding neighborhoods around hotels that can actually, they're seeing guests come back in and they're able to recoup lost revenue from these neighborhoods. But there's many other restaurants that don't have that privilege, just because of the anchoring and where they're located, right?
Absolutely, location, right? And that's just so it's a little more difficult for them they have to reimagine themselves and what is it that they need to do in order to survive.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of these hotels really depend on businesses coming there and conventions and local entertainment venues and things like that. I remember when I worked at a hotel out in Phoenix, Arizona. I was actually Scottsdale. It was a convention business hotel, and we depended. 90% of our business was on convention business and stuff like that, and it can be a struggle.
And I just want to say, Joe, it's not hard to put a happy face on this. It's the hotel industry thrives on location.
Yeah, that's it. So, like we were just saying, these hotels, they're waiting, they're hoping these businesses and events will come back and it's key that they do. And again, businesses and hotels that I was just mentioning that I worked at, where they're depending on conferences and events, they're truly suffering. And then certainly ones that are located maybe next to theme parks and other entertainment venues like ballparks and football stadium, things like that. They're the ones that are really suffering because they may that percentage of local business coming into their hotel isn't as high of a percentage of other hotels. So again, it all goes back to just being anchored, and it all depends on that location.
Absolutely.
And of course, we're gonna. And I know Richard talked about it, Moez, and you and I talked about it, and certainly our guests in these interviews will bring it up. But it's about the guests feeling comfortable, and it's so with hotels and resorts. Then, I guess it does make sense that we're hoping and waiting for these, guests, feeling comfortable about traveling and staying at different hotels, right?
Absolutely. It's we're not comfortable traveling by plane, train or cruise ship. So it's so there's this opportunity, right? So now families that have a little money to splurge are looking at some of these locations, these wonderful hotel locations, and it's safer to travel in their vehicles.
That's it. And that brings us to this one, right? I mean, what we're seeing is that a lot of these destination luxury hotels are becoming places for people that live locally there to travel to. As you're saying, they're not gonna spend money on airplane tickets and travel to places where they can't visit with 100% of the places open. And so they're choosing and they're actually feeling more comfortable just staying home and visiting these beautiful destination luxury hotels. So those businesses, that sector is actually seeing a bump in business. So that's interesting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, middle class income families may choose to splurge on a hotel getaway, right?
Yeah, exactly. So instead of traveling far, they just stay local and enjoy the surrounding areas. And again, if those hotel companies, many chains, they're certainly have to use tailored solutions because if you have 15 to 20 hotels in your portfolio, all those different hotels are in different locations. So these solutions are being tailored because of it might be in different states, different counties, right?
Yeah, it may be something like why not like a pop-up theme restaurant, like in one of the restaurants, a pop-up theme. Yeah. Right. It changes every week or week to week. And that's something, again, it's thinking outside the box.
That's it. And again, all coming back to creating that consumer confidence. And that's what I think that connects with this word optics. We in restaurants and even hotels, of course, we have marketing that's always been used to promote and get people into your hotel or into your restaurant. Now, we're seeing a lot of marketing pieces in these businesses somehow trying to communicate to the guests that, hey, we are keeping things clean. These are our protocols. We're remodeling. We're taking all these precautions, when you check in or when you come to the host stand, and maybe we're having multiple host stands. So it's all about optics too, right, Gary?
It is. It certainly is. It's training. It's information. It's management communicating with their staff, providing guidelines to the staff on how they should communicate to guests. And again, it's, as you said, the optics of full transparency. You know, the hotel, we as a hotel, the team, the management team, the staff, we're doing everything for your safety.
Truly, you know, and it's about surviving. So what Garry and I have discovered, both online and in face-to-face conversations with local restaurateurs, and we're going to share some of their comments with you. You know, those businesses that have survived have done so by seriously considering their existing concept. So we're talking about reinventing the concept here, reinventing yourself as a business. Now, some of these hotels and restaurants have leaned into takeout and maybe adding drive-throughs and added curbside pickup to just find ways to generate more revenue. And so we believe the major areas considered here are just to kind of put it under the umbrella of modification of concept. And there's just 4 separate areas I think that that are being considered. So number one, you know, consideration of how the product is delivered. And here we're talking about flow of product. So we heard from Richard and we heard from people in our interviews that, you know, of course, you know, increasing takeout, you know, is certainly on the rise almost immediately, when certainly even before places were being shut down. You know, restaurants are using more packing supplies and ordering apps are being used more. So how the product is being delivered from point A to point B. At the end of the day, it's all about making the guests feel comfortable and how that's being done. What's the overall sanitation? What are the protocols? But of course, you know, from a business point of view, Garry, it's about keeping it efficient, being productive, and you know, but still trying to drive revenue, but really thinking about how that product is delivered. Correct?
Absolutely. So, you know, again, it's the industry's been turned on its heels. They had to reinvent their business plan or look at their business plan and say, okay, now that we're, you know, the bulk of our business is curbside or pickup or third-party delivery, how are we going to get it from our place to our customers, right? Not just its safety and sanitation, but it's also the integrity of the product. Is it going to get, you know, arriving hot, arriving cold? So all these things that they have to factor in. It's not just one container. It's not a one size fits all. Yeah.
And, you know, we talked with John and we talked a lot with him offline. And for instance, I think they were doing 7% takeout and they went to 40% takeout. And that's growing pains. Those are growing pains having to deal with that, right?
They are. They certainly are. They're good growing pains.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the next one, consideration of what product is served, right? So simplifying the menu, scaling down the menu. And of course, a lot of restaurants are considering this because of just decreasing in their overall inventory, but certainly really considering what they're serving. And as you were just talking about, Garry, maybe because some things may not travel well, right?
Absolutely. It goes back to how the product is delivered, how it travels. So again, identifying, really having good, hard, honest look at their menu or at your menu and saying, okay, this is our number one seller, but it doesn't travel well, right? So they may have to modify that particular dish or just change it altogether. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mentioned to Richard when we met him earlier that I was really impressed with how they're doing it. And you know, restaurants are figuring that out and have been figuring it out pretty quickly. The other one, number 3, is just menu collateral changes. So the physical menus, you know, going to QR codes. Obviously very convenient. I wasn't real big on that, actually. I'll be honest with you, Garry, when I had to first scan a QR code. But you know what? It's so convenient.
It's touchless. It is convenient.
Yeah. So the QR codes, you know, laminated menus, you know, those have been around for a while. But you know, restaurants maybe throwing away that book menu and go to a laminated menu that they can clean, and even using paper. Disposable paper menus. Yeah. So anything else you can think of, Garry, as far as the menu collateral?
Well, I guess maybe some of the challenges might be for the QR code would be, I guess, this, you know, the generational gap, right?
Right.
Some people might be intimidated by that. How does it work?
Very good. That's a good point.
It may not appeal to them. It may discourage them from going out, maybe.
Oh, that's a good point. And doesn't that go back to just making your guests feel comfortable, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's a good point. So making them feel comfortable, not only with the sanitation protocols, but with the technology being used. I mean, that can be a challenge.
Yep.
Yeah. And again, it depends on, where you live, what your demographic is. So if you understand your target market, and who's coming to your restaurants, hopefully you can adjust with that. And it's interesting. And then the last one, of under modification of concept is just, redesign of physical space and flow. So, due to the increase in takeouts and to-goes and things like that, and due to outside dining, a lot of restaurants and chefs are just, it could be a minor change. It could be just moving tables around, or changing the line a little bit, or it could be major renovations, as we heard Richard talking about, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So you've got this large restaurant with, say, 100 seats, and it's fine dining or not. How do I fill in those areas of void, right? We want the guests to come in and think, oh my God, this restaurant is empty. We're in that intimate setting. So, they've been doing, restaurateurs are creative. So they're adding props, they're adding plants, they're adding, these false temporary walls to make it look more intimate, more holistic, and less.
Somebody just made a great comment to us, Gary. They said they were put off by the QR code because they left their phone in their car and there was no other option. There was no paper menu, maybe. So the only thing was the QR code. That was interesting. So
yeah, and that could leave a bad taste, and excuse the pun, in some people's mouths. But and it's just these, and again, it's these new changes that we have to go through, and I think overall people have adapted and adjusted well.
Exactly. Some other comments, placemat menus, those have been around for a while. Certainly if they're placemat menus that are either disposable or laminated, that makes sense. You can either throw them away. But I remember talking to John, Gary, and he was saying that they just found that the paper menus were kind of a waste of paper, so they've gone to laminated. Yeah. I think he'll mention that when we get to him.
It's a waste of paper, and and it's money too, right? And
absolutely. Too, this we haven't mentioned outside dining yet. I know Columbia Restaurant's big on that. They're kind of ahead of the curve, just naturally. But a lot of restaurants that are going to more and more outside dining, they're even negotiating with neighbors. I know a friend of mine who has a restaurant next to a Walgreens, and they've actually negotiated with the Walgreens to use some of their parking lot for outside dining. So just getting creative. It's not so much of spending a fortune on remodeling, but maybe just negotiating with space right outside your door.
Yeah, looking at negotiating with your renter, with your whoever's in charge of your lease, or with your neighbor. And for example, I think it's in Lakewood Ranch, where some of the restaurants on Main Street have negotiated with the landlord, if you will, to the property management people if they could put more chairs and tables on the street. So. And they've agreed to that, and they've, partitioned off part of the street to accommodate those 3 or 4 restaurants, which, again, going back, restaurants are an anchor to a community. Yeah. We know that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think at this point, Gary, we can get to some of the first interview answers we had. We interviewed some individuals. Gary, you want to share with everybody who we talked to?
Wonderful. We have the great pleasure and honor of having Mr. John Horn of Anna Maria Oyster Bar, a wonderful restaurateur, and also Chef Dana Johnson of the Grove. Can you please play the clip?
Thank you.
Traded on our to-go business because carryout has tremendously picked up. People are they still want to eat. They still want to get their comfort food that they're used to, but not all of them are ready to step into a restaurant. So I think that's how, we limited our menu during COVID. We cut out some items. We tried to figure out how can we come back properly. Immediately when we came back and we were 25 and 50% occupancy, we had a specific menu to be able to handle. So we, with rotation, it's fresh seafood. You don't want to have a lot of product on hand. So not knowing how many people were going to come in, it changed us drastically. But I think as far as our concept, we've always been a local restaurant that we have so many regular customers. I think it endured our concept and our feeling of how important our guests were by showing them how cleanly conscious we were going to be. And I think that's what boosted our concept and our brand tremendously. They'd always thought that we took care of them, and they always felt that we were all about our guests and our staff. And now seeing how hard we've come back from this and how we've really come to how important cleanliness is, the seal of commitment, et cetera. It has really increased our brand as a community partner.
Well, at our full dining establishments at the Pier 22 restaurant group, traditionally what was once just a lunch and dinner operation, we've had to expand on our business hours, our concepts, and even our methods of delivery to the customer, just because of the demands and restrictions that have been put in place. I mentioned what was lunch and dinner. We've expanded to doing breakfast on the weekends. We've seen a huge increase in off-site catering, delivery, takeout, more delivered meals that people are wanting to prepare in their own homes. Eating as family. As a fine dining restaurant, you usually think of a beautifully intricate, decorated plate, but we've seen the customers wanting more meals they can take home, prepare themselves, and not so much a focus on the presentation, but the quality of the food and just the portability and ease of reheating and things like that. Absolutely. We've expanded to not only from the traditional takeout boxes to aluminum and microwavable containers, things that are oven safe, things that are sealed to keep in the moisture, and not only just the moisture, but protect the integrity and the safety of the food, which is something the consumers looking at. We've examined our menus and kind of eliminated some that weren't totally selling, and also had to evaluate from a transportation standpoint, separating sauces out from a dish and giving that wow factor. When you open up a package, it's not something that got jostled around in the car, but it's actually composed with containers and sauces and things that are still presentable, but can be easily put onto the final dish.
They always say, communication's the best thing you can do. And we've got a huge email list and compared to the industry, we have an open rate that's phenomenal, because they just do feel it's not somebody signed up for, Wendy's or anything. It comes from the heart. It comes from me. And so during COVID, during the close down, when we were closed for 7 weeks, I put out a weekly e-blast, which, I hate getting that many. I absolutely, that's usually when I unsubscribe, when people just start blowing up my inbox. But we just felt it was important to let them know what we were doing while we were closed, the improvements we were making on our restaurant, and that we were taking care of our staff, because our guests have such a connection with our staff. And so they want to know that they're safe, that they're financially safe. I mean, I had so many respond to me that, they wanted to send money. Can you give this to Susie, our server, every Tuesday? They just had that. They felt so good towards people, and it made them feel good about our brand, to know that we were taking care of our staff, and we weren't just hunkered down. We were improving our facilities while we were closed, to make it better, to make it safer, to make it cleaner, and to streamline for carryout. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to communicate with your staff and your guests. And I think that just boosted our brand tremendously during this.
We've gotten away from the fine dining kind of establishment of using a traditional bound menu. We have started offering digital menus that are easily accessible from our website, as well as the QR codes I'm sure you may have seen on some other establishments, where you can scan and take you to a link on the website. We're also using newly laminated menus that are easy to clean and sanitize. We did try the paper menus, but I'm sure many operators have seen that's an increased cost that we never really planned on.
Right.
So coming up with these alternatives are a really good way to kind of sustain the business model. We've taken a look historically at our sales and removed maybe 10 to 15% of underperforming items, things that were maybe very labor intensive to prepare but weren't really selling, to kind of focus on our core menu items, as well as kind of readapting those plates to keep in mind it might be something the consumer isn't necessarily going to be eating in the restaurant, but takeout as well. So how do these things travel? We've seen things like fried chicken and dishes that do travel well compared to steaks that may become dry, or seafood, especially with the longer hold time. So we've had to really analyze a menu for a whole different delivery and offsite concept from what was once a traditional fine dining establishment.
We cut probably 20% of our menu during the initial, bounce back of the gradual opening after COVID, when we allowed partially in. We did a paper menu and a QR menu. So, I mean, people could use their devices, wouldn't even have to touch a menu. We did paper menus that we threw away for the first several weeks. And then, currently we're using our regular menus, but we're wiping them down with sanitizer in between each list. But we purged quite a few items from our menu. It gives you an excuse to purge some items that you've been wanting to get away, that, the vocal minority says, what'd you do with my ex? I love that. And I'm like, oh, you're the one person a week that eats that meal, so it gave us an excuse to purge some of the items on our menu that we've been wanting to get off that are not sellers, so we did that, but a lot of it as far as the physical part with the QR code to get to a menu, and then the ability to just throw away a menu. It's all about sanitation. My clientele is an older clientele, so they're more concerned about health and safety. So they're looking even closer.
Yeah, Joe, there's a lot to unpack there, but from both John and Dana. What I got there is transparency, certainly, and there's a place for technology, with the touchless QR codes, having to communicate with their staff, safety and sanitation, full transparency, going back to the optics, full transparency with their customers.
Yeah. And, I think what John was saying too, by, just not hunkering down, but actually embracing those changes that need to be made. And Scott just sent us a great point, a good question, but just a point, we can only control the controllables, management and restaurants can be difficult. And so the things that you can change and adapt to make sense. And those are the ones you should go after. But just great stuff there.
But again, going back to, what John said as well, it's having a good hard look at your menu and purging those items. And he said that, purging the items that don't necessarily sell well. Yeah. And that's a good thing.
Yep. Yep. We were talking about outside dining, and then right away we got a comment from Jennifer out there. She must live up north, and she was saying that, outside dining's great, but if you're up there in the great northeast, northwest, it might be a little more challenging. So outdoor dining isn't always a solution for every place, every location, right?
No, it's certainly, obviously here in Florida, it's a moot point, but up in New England, northern states, it will be a challenge. It's easy to say that we can purchase heaters and have these tents outside, but all that costs money, right? And not every, especially the smaller independent restaurants, it's going to be a struggle for them to do that. The larger chains, it might be easier, obviously, but for the small ones, it will be. So, but restaurateurs are resilient, big or small, and they will succeed.
Yep. We can go ahead and play that next clip. We're gonna we asked them more about the flow of product. So if we can play that next clip, that'd be great. Go ahead and roll that second clip. While we're waiting for that,
But and also John mentioned another thing. It's obviously Anna Maria Oyster Bar is well situated in Bradenton, Sarasota County. He's established a loyal clientele, and he's reached out to his clientele.
Yeah,
and to again assuring them that we're open for business and everything's okay.
That's it. Yeah, go ahead and roll that clip. Thanks, folks.
We really took a look, both because of labor concerns. Obviously, reducing operating a limited capacity has required us to reduce our labor force as well. But looking at menu items, how long do they take to prepare? How many hands are involved in the preparation? So what once may be a 2 or 3 person operation, from peeling of potatoes to then cutting them to then making the French fries or chips. From a safety concern, in order to reduce the possibility of transmission of any virus or bacteria, the flow has actually reduced to maybe 1 person is responsible for that. So it allows us that kind of contact tracing, if you will, on who's had their hands in a particular dish.
Well, we've done a couple of different things to move into a different area. And, a lot of it is third-party delivery and just regular carry-out curbside. We, where most places have had established curbside areas, we've done that. We have changed our packaging for to-go that it travels better. Third-party delivery is good, but they're not as reliable as, you're using a third party. And we've had horror stories where it's taken 2 hours to pick up and deliver an item. And so there's no way you can prepare food that'll be good in 2 hours, but we've done things. We've improved our menu, and we've limited what we do to go, things that travel well, things that will get home. We've even come up with comfort food, family meals to appeal to the families at home. You can get an entire meal set and ready to go, bottle of wine or a half gallon of margaritas to go. So it makes you feel like you're still coming in the restaurant. You're getting, everything that you really love about the restaurant, and you can do it at home. But we've designed our kitchens. As I said, when we were closed, we completely redid one of our kitchens, and a lot of that was to streamline carry out, to set up a whole carry out section in our restaurant, in the kitchen, to help out. So we've looked ahead. We know that carry out and to go business will be a big part of our business moving forward. So we just, instead of sitting around, we said, let's jump on it and get there. Let's be ready for it. And it's helped tremendously.
Yeah, that's great. I remember when we had a webinar. Remember back in March, Gary, we had a webinar with FRLA,
Yes.
With some other leaders, and what was talked about there was that restaurants were able to sell to-go alcohol. John brings that up. So I think that just having a governor that kind of lets businesses kind of make their own decisions and gives them a little freedom and trust their decision making is helpful. Not every state may have that, so we're lucky to have that. What was your take on what Dana was talking about as far as less hands on food?
Dana said it well. It's they had to reduce labor, either through layoff or furloughs, but unfortunately, safety concerns, right?
Yeah.
Less is more. So they're looking at the flow. So instead of multiple people handling, like 3 or 4 people, hands handling dishes or a certain dish, they've reduced it down to 1. So in this case, less is less, right? And they're aware of that. So again, looking a good hard look at their menu and which ones are best suited for that.
Yeah. When he was talking about that, Gary, the first thing I thought of was back in culinary school, because back in culinary school, it's all about creating systems and a brigade system and funneling food down the line, and might go to garde and then go to banquets. And so stuff at training in culinary schools that has to change too, along with this. And I'm sure it probably is it's being changed right now, I hope.
Yeah, as you were saying this, Joe, I'm thinking time management, right? It's hardwired in our heads. But yeah, you're right. And we think it will certainly see culinary schools of all over adapting and making the changes.
That's great. And we can go back to the slides there if we would. And yeah, so we're also getting just a lot of comments on leading by example and being good leaders. And I tell you, man, I think we really tap into that. We teach a lot of that in our program, and that's so important, right? Just being good leaders.
Absolutely, we can't say that enough. We are an extension of ourselves, and we lead by example. We're certainly not going to have people do things that we wouldn't do, and set them up for failure. So it's motivating. It's gaining the trust of your team. Motivating your team and showing them that you're a team player, that I'm no different. I'm going to wear multiple hats, whatever it is.
Absolutely. That's so true.
Yeah.
Just to share some more numbers with you before we get any more down the line here. So our industry, food and beverage, certainly been rocked to the core, right, over the past 8 months. The NRA reports that $165 billion was lost from March to July. And then forecasts show $240 billion in sales will be lost by the end of 2020. Those restaurants that are able to survive, Gary, have been forced to become very lean in many areas. And as we mentioned before, concepts are being modified, and of course, labor is always being looked at. Labor is being trimmed, and the tally on employees right now unable to work due to closures and leaning out of staff is 3 million employees. And according to the NRA statistics, restaurants currently are staffing at only 71% of the employees that they were staffing at before the pandemic. So, restaurants are surviving on wit and ingenuity, and we hear this a lot from everybody we talk to. But it's tricky, right? It really is tricky because you have that human dynamic.
It's a slippery slope. Yeah, it is tricky. There's no easy answer there.
It is, and we know how important the inseparability factor is, right? It's so important in our industry or any business that is serving food and beverage. Dr. Mystery talked about that. She covered some of those important points in her previous module on human resources management. Food and beverage businesses depend, we know this, they depend on that connection between the employee and the guest. That human dynamic is so critical. We know that, and it's critical to the product itself, right? You take the chef out, you take the servers away, you take the cashiers away, the bussers, we have no restaurant product, right?
There's no soul. You've just taken away the soul from
that's
all
it.
operations.
That's it. Yeah. So I agree with Richard. He was saying we just got to open up businesses. Obviously keeping in mind and being cautious is what he said. I couldn't agree more. And it's also hard to ignore the sociology aspect of losing. Think about that, 100,000 restaurants. I mean, that's just devastating. Restaurants are an important part of our communities. We heard that from Richard, and we've heard that from others. Think about the overall social scene pre-COVID to now. Restaurants have always given us that buzzing social scene, playing their important role as a place for people to gather and to meet, to break bread, to celebrate anniversaries, birthdays, and other milestones. And we certainly talk about this in all of our courses, and just talking about that those memorable moments that are created in hospitality businesses. Humans aren't meant to stay hunkered down in their houses for long periods of time, Gary. A nationwide survey conducted by the NRA found that 80% of adults say restaurants are an important part of their community. And fortunately, we see many of these surviving restaurants building back their communities around them as of right now. Gary, what effect do you think the current restaurant struggle has done to our communities?
Oh gosh, again, Joe, the restaurants truly are an anchor in many neighborhoods, in many communities, big or small. It's cultural, right? It's we go out as family and friends for the experience, and it's bonding. It's a lot of different things for people, and they all have their different reasons for going out to restaurants. But overall, it's a cultural experience. It's a bonding experience. It's camaraderie. But certainly restaurants are the anchor of many communities, and you take that away, then there's nothing really.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's been a struggle keeping restaurant employees on staff too during this past year, and we can go back. Let's go back to one more clip of John and Dana, and they're talking about dealing with staffing struggles. It's a good clip. Thank you.
The big thing for us has been cross-training and the flexibility of staff. Obviously, at a reduced capacity and labor force, we've had to accommodate, the business needs, because coming into this time, it was very, very unknown. We didn't know what days we were going to be busy and what days were slow, and historically we could predict. So cross-training of staff is going to be a very big, important thing, as well as the mindset and the capability of a student to understand that this could be a very flexible environment. What was once the hospitality industry is kind of put on its heads. No longer is we just have a fine dining establishment, but the wait staff may be making deliveries or doing curbside pickups and things that were not normally a part of their job responsibilities.
We've actually overstaffed. Our labor is just killing us right now, because as I said, our safety patrol person is on every day. We've got an extra host on every day because I don't want, groups gathering at the podium. with 50% capacity, obviously I'm not going on waits, but I have a backup of people to get to a table. So I want to keep the social distancing at the podium. I want to make sure that someone's there directing traffic. Outdoor dining has just completely taken off. So now I have a host just for our deck area, because I want to get people to a table as quickly as I possibly can. I don't want a backup in a big group of people at the front door, making other people uncomfortable. So we've overstaffed on host staff, and I've overstaffed on cleanliness bus staff. So, you know, and then we've also got food runners that we don't normally have. We've got an extra one because I don't want the servers touching, you know, I mean, I want clean food going out with gloves on, and then if I don't want a server walking away with dirty dishes, and, you know, so we put extra people on. So our labor has just absolutely gone crazy during this time. But it's what you need to do to, again, go back to the customer satisfaction. They need to see it, and they all see it. Let me tell you, they notice what's going on, and they bring it to your attention, and they're like, thank you so much for what you're doing. And we've all walked in other restaurants that it's just like, just like old times, you know, come on in. And so we're just doing it the way we think is important. We really.
Yeah, those are some great points, you know, and Gary, it makes me think of how important a culture is in a restaurant, you know. So maybe pre-COVID, and I always talk about this with my students, and I'm sure you do too, you know, how important the culture is, the team dynamic, people getting along and trying to give that wonderful experience to their guests. But having that culture where you have your employees, they're able to kind of adapt and modify and change their roles without kind of questioning anything. They just kind of, they go with the flow, and they're able to change and adapt. How important is that?
That's huge. That's key to survival. Yeah. It truly is. And it should be instinctive for restaurateurs to think like that and adapt quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, cross-training is important, but if you don't do it on a regular basis, and then all of a sudden tomorrow you start cross-training people in a hurry, you know, people are going to kind of get you silly if you haven't done that in the past. So,
yeah. And cross-training isn't a new concept. I mean, many restaurants have been doing it for years and years and years, but today, considering everything, you know, with the pandemic and the economy, but certainly, as Dana said, cross-training, you know, wearing multiple hats. The server or the bartender may be now making deliveries. And it's, you know, I spoke to Chef Jose Martinez of La Maison Blanche a couple of weeks back. We had an interview with him, and that's what he was saying. Of course, he's a fine dining restaurant, 5 Michelin star chef, beautiful man. And he said, you know, his servers were now delivering meals at times. So adapting to the change.
Whatever they got to do. Yeah, we're getting some great comments flashing up here too, Gary. We got to
take some questions. Yeah.
Well, we can just mention them, and then we got to move on. We're not running out of time. We're doing good, but just kind of wanted to make them known. Somebody was talking about the fact of you know, now that we're able to get back in the restaurants and stuff, you know, hopefully we'll be using less electronics. You know, have our heads buried in our phones. Maybe we'll just talk to the person next to us. And you know, somebody else was mentioning just the importance of that experience. I mean, it is all about the experience. And so that's what these fantastic restaurateurs are doing. They're thinking outside the box, you know, folks like John and Dana Johnson, they're thinking outside the box, and they're solving problems, right?
I believe, and you know what, and both John Horn and Dana emphasize the importance of that.
Yeah.
And the optics and being aware of their clients, their customers.
Exactly.
You're right. It's their neighborhood. It's their community. So, because we do go out for the experience, and I think some restaurants pre-COVID forgot that.
Yeah, that's it. Well, folks, we want to drill down a little deeper on the sanitation part. So let's play that last clip. It's some great comments on overall sanitation best practices.
Customer confidence, because I don't care if you're, you know, a 20-year-old customer or an 80-year-old customer. It's all about confidence. People want to walk in and see that people are taking it seriously, and people are taking they're not just out for the almighty dollar. You've got to make sure that you know your customer and you know what they're looking for. So as I said, a lot of my clientele is of the elderly. So they're more susceptible to COVID than a lot of other people. So they're looking to make sure. So, we've brought in, we've increased our staff of cleaning people. I've got a person every shift, every day, lunch and dinner. They're in a bright orange shirt. They look like a safety patrol. It's got reflective tape on it, like they could go out and work, a crime scene. And we want them visible. We want people to see them. And they're walking around, they're wiping down the high touch areas. They're wiping down menus. They're wiping down every condiment when it returns from a table. So it's getting a complete thorough cleansing before it goes to the next table. So that's what we're showing our guests, because we want them to have the customer confidence. We want them to say, wow, you guys are really, really making sure that your staff's healthy and that we're healthy. And that's what you've got to do. You got to make sure your customer feels comfortable.
Our clientele is coming in not only with an increased sense of sanitation, but just the general ambiance, the feeling of a restaurant. When they come in, is it well lit? Is it open air? Are there off smells? Because that may indicate poor ventilation or things that have kind of been attributed to this COVID thing. We've had a lot of diners wanting to sit outside because they feel indoor dining isn't necessarily safe. As far as an operation, we've certainly increased our sanitation of tables, the wait staff being much more conscious about washing their hands, using hand sanitizer. And just a year ago, I'm sure all of us have visited a restaurant where you get a dirty fork or a dirty knife, you send it back, it may be insignificant, but certainly now under increased scrutiny and awareness, that would bring in a sign of a dirty fork may indicate is this restaurant, is this operator not performing at the level we expect, or are they really cleaning as deep as they say they are? So that's one of the challenges we've had in particular. Increasingly used sous vide and vacuum portion cooking to keep things, necessarily food items, separate. It also allows us to heat to the proper temperatures. We are certainly examining our flow of food. Our temperature is kind of doubling down. Is this cooked safely? Is it proper? Keeping logs, things like that, just to create that data, that backup. If any case were to occur, if somebody would become sick in our restaurant and an operator knows, what do I do now? How can I protect myself? We can rest assured that we put these practices into place and we're doing everything we can.
Well, our phone rings every day and they're asking at what level of, occupancy is the dining room, because they don't want to come into a packed, full, somebody right beside them dining room. And most restaurateurs are feeling the same way, Joe. They're looking out for their guests. They're making sure that they're going along with the CDC guidelines for social distancing and so forth. But our guests are calling and say, what level are you? Are you at 100%? And we're telling them, no, our indoor dining is still at 50%. We've removed tables. We have plenty of room indoors. Outdoors is still, 6 foot distance, but we've expanded our seating outdoors. So we're giving them the options of eating outdoors. And, obviously people feel it's a little bit safer outdoors with the wind blowing through and so forth and so on. So this is, what we've looked at to do to make everybody more and more comfortable. And that's the important part. They're calling, they're asking, where are you on occupancy? So, and then, I get the opposite just as well. I'm like, I have people that come in and like, why can't I sit at that table? It's empty. And we're like, because that's a closed table because of our 50%, we're not seating that table. And they get upset as well. So you immediately find everybody's allegiances, political and otherwise, right away.
That's right.
But our choice is to err on the side of caution, and that's what we're doing.
It is taking employee health screenings, wearing the masks, not only COVID, but we want to make sure when our employees come in the door that they're healthy, they're feeling well. And as well as we're developing sick policies, which I think many establishments will be looking at paid sick time and leave and things like that, because we don't want our staff coming in sick and working ill, even if they depend on a paycheck day to day. We want to make accommodations to make sure that the way we treat our employees attributes to our customers as well. And the dining public can come in knowing that, our employees are healthy, they're well, they're wearing masks just to prevent any possible transmission of a virus through the air. We're doing everything we can do.
It's harrowing for a while. I mean, there's so many things you feel like you need to do and you've got to do it. We've tried to make it fun as well. We looked to the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, and we had them come in. They have increased, they do cleaning or, sanitation and so forth, but they came up with a higher level of certification, and it's called the Seal of Commitment. We did that at all 4 of our restaurants immediately. In fact, we were, our Ellington store was the first restaurant in Florida to receive the Seal of Commitment, but we did it at all 4 of our stores. We overtrained our staff to be, what cautions they need to take, et cetera, et cetera. So, but as I said, we're telling them, hey, have you washed your hands? Have you done this? And so forth. We brought these big bells into all 4 of our restaurants. And so every 30 minutes, the host or someone has an alarm going at all times. So every 30 minutes, their alarm will go off. They'll go over and ring the bell, and everybody's like, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. So instead of like, have you washed your hands? It's not a, it's more of a fun thing. Go wash your hands. And so we came up with it, it's everybody's, the old thing is you sing happy birthday. And if you sing happy birthday twice, that's the proper amount of time. Well, we decided that's boring. We sing happy birthday to our guests. So we sing Cheeseburger in Paradise. And so you'll see all these servers run over to the sink and I like mine with lettuce and tomato highs 50. So that's what we're doing at our stores, just to do something different. And because it is, you want it to be fun. You want it to be, hey, this is better than, oh God, I've got to wash my hands. John says I got to wash my hands. The manager says I got to, this just makes it a little bit more fun. So the guests see us doing that, and they, again, that's the perception you want the guests to have, is that we are taking this seriously. We're clean, we're sanitized, we're healthy, and we're concerned about our guests as much as we are ourselves. So that's just one way to make it different. I mean, we temp front and back of the house, but all of our staff front and back are all wearing masks. As long as they're in the building, they're wearing masks. They're wearing gloves, always in gloves in the back anyway. But we also temp anybody that comes in, any of our delivery guys, any service guy that comes in, we temp and check them to make sure they're healthy and safe. If they have a temperature, we don't let them come in. We tell them somebody else has to deliver the goods today. We have a key drop system with our broad lines. They come in at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. They got a key to the building. They got the alarm. They drop off, the delivery. So I've got a $10,000 US Foods delivery sitting in the kitchen. They put it in the coolers. They put it in the freezer. They put everything away when my guys arrive at 7 o'clock. So there's less, there's less interaction with people as well. And that's what we've tried to do. We've had some of our prep guys come in the middle of the night so that they're not doubled up on each other. Normally you'll have a prep guy working in the back of the house, and then the cooks come in at 10 o'clock. We've tried to bring them in earlier so that the prep is done and gone. So there's not too many, double people in the same station. We're doing our best to keep social distance in the back as well. And it's not impossible. It's impossible to completely get away with it. I mean, if I got a saute guy standing next to an expo, standing next to a guy in a fry station or the box as we call it, there's no way you're going to keep 6 feet apart. That's just not going to happen. But if I can keep the number of people in the kitchen down at any one time, that's one way to help. So I don't have a prep guy and a cook working over each other. So, I mean, you just do whatever you have to do. There's ways around everything. There really are.
It can certainly get hot in the kitchen, and we have struggled with kitchen staff wearing masks, but we've taken this family approach. I mean, we're in the hospitality industry, and if we explain to the team that we're doing this as a preventative measure to make our guests feel comfortable and to prevent any coworkers from getting sick, we could be asymptomatic carriers and unknowingly spread it. We don't want to affect anybody else's livelihood, so we're all in this together. We want to be safe. We want to follow the recommended precautions. And overwhelmingly, it's been a good response from the team in understanding that, as long as you can explain the reasons why behind it, and it's not just a mandate. Everybody's got to put a mask on.
Yeah, that's some great stuff. And I think we're going to try to wrap this up here in a couple more slides. But I just got to thank everybody out there. Wow, we're getting so many fantastic comments and questions from everybody. I've read a few of them, and I'm gonna make the attempt, Garry, when we go through these summary slides. I'm gonna kind of intertwine some of those comments that people and questions people ask. I'll try to intertwine that in there. If for some reason we don't answer your question, please connect with us through email, and we'll answer every one of them. But I was just so impressed. Thank you so much for engaging with our module, right, Garry?
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. So just to kind of wrap this up here, Garry and I have kind of just summarized everything that's kind of been talked about here. So number one, right, consider all optics. You know, what the guests see is so important. It's been mentioned so many times. You know, and that guest belief in sanitation is, if at any point in time, it's so critical right now, right?
Absolutely, Joe. You know, it's safety sanitation, going back to what John said, and Chef Dana. It's full transparency. It's being honest. It's communicating with your staff, and it's taking this seriously. And you know, you look at the intangibles, and that's both Chef Dana and John Horn using their imaginations to be creative, to help them with their.
That's it. You know, somebody asked a question on this, as far as how to use technology in Zoom cooking classes. I think that's a great question. And what I would say is, man, what great way to use optics and to maybe create. How about creating some videos on how you're cooking a recipe or how you're conducting business? Well, let's say you made a video on how a recipe is being made. You can show off. You can kind of showcase your sanitation practices in that video, and that would be powerful, right?
You know, nothing's off the table, and what a great opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
Exactly. Finding ways to change the floor plan without changing the ambiance, right? I mean, you're not trying to compromise your brand, but you're certainly trying to increase efficiencies, right, Garry?
Yeah, you are. You're trying to minimize the amount of, you know, the flow, how many people are handling things, and also you want your restaurant to look, you know, special, right? You don't want it to look empty.
Right. Yep. Exceeding the minimum of what CDC recommends. So yeah, John mentioned that. I know Dana has, and you know, going above and beyond what's recommended, and that's why the FRLA, that's Florida Restaurant Lodging Association. I'm sure every state has a comparable association, but that's been given out to a lot of restaurants, and they're taking it, and they're actually, you know, those standards are actually exceeding what the CDC is recommending.
Exactly. And both John and Jana are doing a wonderful job there by exceeding that, by coming up with their own protocols, even taking it a step further.
Yeah. And I like what John said about just making it fun, you know, I mean, really enhancing and making them better than what's recommended, but during all your protocols, you know, making it fun and to where everybody can kind of come together and feel like they're making a difference and bringing guests in and making guests feel comfortable.
Absolutely. And there's no one size fits all there, right? Every restaurant is different, has different needs, different setup, different amount of people. So restaurateurs have to find that, you know, what works for them.
Yeah, no. So I guess what you're saying maybe is, if you're doing some kind of protocol or practice in like a family restaurant, that may not work in like a fine dining restaurant, right? So you have to flex with the concept.
Or fast casual. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But still have fun. Documentation, you know, really considering the documentation that you're maybe collecting for just proof of you following certain best practices, using certain kinds of equipment that may help in the cooking of certain pieces of ingredients, but they'll also enhance the sanitation.
Yeah, one good example would be sous vide or immersion cooking, or like sous vide under vacuum. So instead of using, you know, traditionally we would use containers or Ziploc cooler or Ziploc freezer bags. But why not invest in a sous vide machine or a vacuum seal machine where you're getting all the air and moisture out, so you have a longer shelf life, so you maintain the integrity of the product longer, which may save you money in the long run.
Yeah, you know, Garry, somebody asked a question on, you know, what we think the overall cost would be to absorb all these recommendations and things like that. And, you know, that's a hard question to answer, and I guess it depend on from state to state, county to county. But I would say the biggest cost is labor, right? I mean,
it's your labor, and again, I go back to the intangibles. It's, you know, our minds, it's our imagination, and again, as you said, it's not you know, it's not a one size fits all. So you just have to use your imagination, creative, and yeah, it's going to cost, and but it depends. It varies by restaurant.
Yeah. And restaurants that are really kind of leaning into it and are able to do it, as John said, and even Richard said it too, they've increased their labor, it seems like, and they're in it for the long game. They're able to do that, but they're really in it to just create that comfortable setting for the guests. But some restaurants may not be able to do that. It's tough. I mean, labor's a big one.
You consider this, the trade-off is, you've been in business for years. You've established. They're more than customers, they're clientele, right? And you've established all this time, and you've established a wonderful clientele. Don't skimp on the little things, the labor. Okay, so your labor goes up a bit, but if you're still able to maintain your clientele, your customers, then it's well worth it.
Very true, very true. Employee screening, and then even John said vendor screening, just thinking of you as your restaurant as a bubble, and anything that comes into that bubble is a potential threat. I remember in culinary school, Gary, one of the things I said, and I learned it from somebody, I'm not sure but just treating the kitchen like a laboratory. I mean, you really got to think of it like that.
Think about it. We're working with raw items, perishable items, and we should be working maybe in a bubble in a lab, but absolutely screening your vendors, making sure that they're being screened right by their companies, because you don't compromise your staff and essentially your business. Yeah,
exactly. That's a good point. Knowing what they're doing. The next one is changing and adapting prep times, minimizing. It's all about minimizing that face-to-face interaction, And I know a lot of restaurants did this pre-COVID. I know First Watch restaurants, they did it for efficiencies and for just not having so many bodies in the kitchen. This was years ago. Yeah. But a lot of more restaurants are doing that now just to kind of cut down on that face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And both Dana and John said it well. For example, John has mentioned that he has earlier delivery times, different prep times, and then obviously it's the cooking and serving time. So minimizing, what Dana said, minimizing the flow. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Contact. So
that's it. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And I think we're doing good. Just got a couple minutes left. This is the last bullet point. So we'll end on this. Rethinking time management to become even more efficient in the COVID environment. Yeah. So what do you think about that last one, Gary?
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't get that, Joe.
Rethinking time management. I mean, you were kind of getting into that, rethinking how you're managing your time and I think it's a way to maybe cope with some of these labor challenges. If you can kind of spread out your labor and just kind of rethink how you're going about managing your time. And
it starts with obviously it'll start with your menu. Looking at your menu, what changes need to be made, and adjusting. Time management is huge. We say this all the time in the kitchen, right? In restaurants and hotels, but time management is huge, and it starts with you got to look at your menu. Some things maybe we have to remove or purge, as John mentioned earlier, or we maybe not purge them, but maybe we just put them on the shelf for now, right? To help time management and minimize the amount of staff that comes in at certain times.
Definitely important. So I hope you got something out of our presentation. We had a heck of a time being here with you, and I really encourage you to keep in touch with us, get us your emails, any questions that we did not get to. Because you guys had some good ones. Everybody did a fantastic job, but thank you so much. Gary, any parting words?
No, just I wish we could have got to all the questions, but again, thank you. It was an honor. And Joe, thank you for letting me be with you, spend some time with you, and I had a wonderful time. Thank you.
Likewise. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, folks. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joe Askren and also Mr. Garry Colpitts for this wonderful lecture. And for those of you who are, I just want to share with you quickly the Schoology. So the quiz will be available in few seconds for this lecture also. And again, for those of you who are in Schoology, I just want to show you very quickly that click on the courses. And then when you click on the courses, you will just click on the post-crisis hospitality management. Some people ask about how to see the grades. We got quite a few questions about it, so we just would like to review that with you. Just click on the grades here and you will be able to see all of this is just a test student that we have created. And if you want to see your attempts, just click on one of the quizzes. You should be able to see all the attempts that you have made here, and by clicking on this view. So if you have any questions about the particular Schoology, the parts that you cannot, please reach out to us at certificate@m3center.org. Have a wonderful evening, night, morning, wherever you might be. We'll see you next week. Thank you.